Welcome to the Remarkable Retail Podcast, Season 3, Episode 15. I'm Michael LeBlanc.
And I'm Steve Dennis.
So, Steve, in this episode, we're talking about the future of grocery retail, and we have two of North America's preeminent experts. My podcast partner, I have a podcast called the Food Professor Podcast, Dr. Sylvain Charlebois from Halifax, Dalhousie University, and the one and only David Marcotte, Senior Vice President of Operations, Strategic Advisory Services for the global consulting firm Kantar, and one of the nicest guys in retail. What a treat talking to them both.
I thought I was the nicest guy in retail, but I'll get over.
One of the nicest guys.
You did say one.
You're the other one.
Okay. I think Dave's quite a bit nicer than I am, but anyway. But most importantly, though, is leaning on their expertise. I think when we were talking about this episode, obviously grocery is become an incredibly hot area in terms of digital transformation. There's a lot of things going on, and grocery is one of those categories where I've spent probably the least amount of time. You and I have worked in quite a wide variety of formats and sectors, but not so much on the food side. So we needed to bring in a couple of heavy hitters.
Yeah, lots of interesting things happening. Of course, they had a huge tailwind during the COVID era as food service kind of shut down, and a lot of that still to this day. Retail grocery was flat as Belgium, basically, from a results perspective, which was quite troubling actually to many, because the margins are razor thin, the volumes, the formats, and anyway, we'll get into more of that with our guests, Dr. Sylvain Charlebois and David, after News of the Week. So let's talk about our top 3 ideas for News of the Week. Let's start with Bed Bath & Beyond opening stores, or I guess pop-ups or whatever we want to call them, inside Kroger. What do you think about that?
Well, there's actually quite a lot of news. It was a big news week for Bed Bath & Beyond. The Kroger thing got the most attention, but they made some management changes as well. They're buying back their stock. They're launching a digital marketplace. So they're definitely making a lot of moves, as you like to say. Moves. But the Kroger thing is, got a lot of attention. Not sure how I feel about it. I mean, the idea is that Kroger is going to sell some of the baby and home products from Bed Bath & Beyond in its stores, though the initial launch is going to be online only. And then they're planning to roll out kind of shop within a shop, mini shop concept at select Kroger stores. So I don't think we really know exactly what that looks like. But it's interesting, the marrying of these two worlds. You don't typically think of some of the products that Bed Bath & Beyond is known for being in a supermarket. So I think it's just interesting. Kroger's trying a lot of different things to differentiate itself, drive traffic. Bed Bath & Beyond is a big turnaround story. So strange bedfellows, I guess. I'm not sure I inherently get that lots of people are going to want to buy, bedding from Bed Bath & Beyond at a supermarket. I mean, it's the magnitude of how this could move the dial for either one of them seems a little bit skeptical. I don't know. What do you think? Does it strike you as a brilliant idea, or just kind of much ado about nothing?
Well, I think it's somewhere in between, because if I look to some of the grocers like a Loblaw in Canada, they have a whole Joe Fresh line, which came out of what else can we put in the store since we have such trip frequency, right? So the grocery gets a lot of trip frequency. Yeah. It's in many cases a weekly shop, and it was quite successful. So when you walk into some of what they call the Great Canadian Superstore, it's one of their banner formats. Yeah. It's more like a Target, where you've got a whole side, or a Walmart, you've got a whole side of the store that is fresh and frozen and grocery. And then you've got, traditional department stores. So from that perspective, I don't know if there's enough margin to go around between the two of them. That's what's interesting to me. It's a higher margin product. I think I don't know, maybe it's a good test for Kroger to kind of get and step beyond, because I think they could be losing customers who go to Target and say, well, I'm going to go, I need some baby clothes and some groceries. Right. These things, it's mom, right? So it actually pulls back the lens in my mind and says, let's look at the customer, not the commodity. So from that perspective, as you say, I think it's somewhere in between. It could work. It could work, and we'll see what happens. All right, let's talk about number 2. Let's talk about Allbirds. Their IPO hit the skies. Some pretty good results actually from a stock performance perspective. I guess I read that some were saying that that was a bet or a forecast on the overall concept of sustainability and ESG in retail, which seems a lot of responsibility to freight on little Allbirds shoes. What do you think?
I was going to say they're definitely punching above their weight. Yeah, well, this first of all, they should fire their underwriters because the stock popped 90% on the first day. But yes, it was certainly viewed as a successful IPO. Their market cap, I think the day they closed, was over $4 billion, which I took some heat on Twitter for saying that's a crazy valuation. I mean, here's a brand that is going to do about $250 million in revenue this year, negative 18%, I think, 17% operating margin, planning to open a bunch of stores. They've only got a few. So there's a lot of speculation on how successful their growth strategy is going to be. It's a pretty niche product at this point. But yeah, I think for you to believe that, frankly, anything above $1 billion makes any kind of sense, you have to believe that they are going to build some sort of lifestyle sustainability brand, far bigger than what their aspirations appear to be right now. So a lot has to happen for them to grow into that valuation. So I'm pretty skeptical on this one, but we shall see. It's going to take some time to be able to understand whether this is sort of the Boston market or WeWork valuation of our day.
Right. Well, it's definitely, it's, as some would say, a story stock versus a performance stock. Like Summon has just got a tailwind from that person. I've been in their store. Have you been in their store in Soho? It's quite nice.
Yeah.
It's really well done.
It's
they got it all together, but it's a small business, right? Like, I don't know, $4 billion.
Yeah, when I say I did, some of the conversations I had with people, I said, look, I'm not saying Allbirds isn't a great brand. They don't have great product. It's like it's the same thing. It's like a Toyota can be a great car, but you wouldn't pay $200,000 for it, right? So you got to separate the economic valuation from whether or not they've got a sound strategy and a good product. And I think their stores are very well executed. Whether they can have 900 of them, which is I think what they talked about, versus the 35 or something they have right now, probably not.
All right, well, let's talk about our third and final, our favorite. You and I talk about this off the mic a lot of times, Wayfair. So Wayfair, I think you described their earnings as a whiff, a swing and a miss. Let's talk about Wayfair and what does this say? Yeah. What does this all say?
In the spirit of full disclosure, if people go back a little bit, if they have that kind of time, which I hope they don't, I've been kind of negative on Wayfair. Again, not as a good business and not as having done a lot of great things, but the valuation on this company has been pretty crazy for a number of years. They've been in business, I think this is their 18th or 19th year. A couple of years ago, they lost $1 billion in 1 year. And yet the stock kept going up because this is a great growth story. COVID came along and they made their first profit in the history of the company. And they had several quarters where they actually made money, but kind of the perfect storm, right? A lot of stuff moved online because stores were closed. People were investing in the home. Like everything was going their way. Right. Stock went up to $350 or something. Market cap $35 billion. And then along comes this quarter. Sales down, have to look, 19% year over year. $250 million swing in profitability from making money to losing, I think $78, $80 million in the quarter. So I think this, number one, just sort of speaks to really the challenges of Wayfair as a business really being sustainable at the levels they've been at. But I think the broader point is where we start to see some headwinds in these businesses that are e-commerce dominant, that got a gift basically from COVID in terms of all the traffic they got and just the shift in spending patterns, which we'll get into a little bit because groceries certainly had some of those effects as well. So it's going to be interesting to see because we're kind of, this rebalancing of e-com versus physical, as well as, maybe the stimulus starting to wear off and some of the things that cause people to spend a lot more money on their home. There's only so many sofas you can buy, right? So it's going to be interesting. I
also think people are just returning to stores. Because they can, and you see that in some of the sales in the full line furniture retailers. There's probably also,
Well,
by the way, some supply chain challenges gumming up the works for Wayfair,
yes,
as they
yes.
are for everyone. I think that's a drag on everyone's performance in that category, to one degree or another. Anyway, it's a nice segment into our grocery section, our grocery focus, because grocery, right place, right time. They had a huge, immense tailwind. So it's a nice segue. But before we get to that, I wanted to remind everyone, take this opportunity, remind everybody to subscribe in your favorite podcast platform and check out our YouTube site. We got a bunch of videos up there now. When you and I do this, or when we do our solo episode, we put it all up onto YouTube. So we also do some bonus content in the YouTube. So make sure and go and smash that subscribe button.
Got to smash it.
Kids would say.
Very important to smash it.
Got to smash it.
Just can't click it and smash it.
We're still struggling a bit with our visual continuity because sometimes we record on different days, but that's a whole other matter that we'll get that right soon. And I wanted to take a quick opportunity to talk about bonus content. I wanted to tell you a bit of a story about this shirt I'm wearing, which I found in my closet. This is an HBC, Hudson's Bay company, HBC Outfitters. That was a store launched by a gentleman named Bill Fields. Now, the listeners
in the 1600s
who know a bit.
Was it like an outpost?
It was
a trading outpost?
It felt like it was launched in 1999. And Bill Fields was the former president of Walmart US. He was seen as he was literally, he was the protege of Sam Walton, right? And he was going to be the next leader of Walmart in the late 90s. But then he decamped and went to Blockbuster, of all places, to be their president. And then he was brought to Canada to run Hudson's Bay, to be the savior of Hudson's Bay, because Walmart had just come to Canada. So a little bit of retail history. And the funny story is, the backstory behind the scenes, he got here in a couple of months, decided there was no hope, and called the investment bankers behind the scenes to sell the whole thing. Anyway, that's a whole thing that came out a few years later. Great, a real gentleman, Bill Fields. He passed away last year. I got to know him a little bit. Such a gentleman, super smart. He spoke Mandarin because he thought he would be smart to learn Mandarin. He was just a 6'6" tall Texan guy. He was an amazing character. But he launched this store called HBC Outfitters. It was your idea of a remarkable store. It had a biplane in it. It was fantastic. It was the heritage of the brand. Like, it was too early and not quite in the right place. And then the new CEO came in and said, it's a big distraction. But it was, and so it just made me think of that store, that merchandise, your ideas, because it was the embodiment of all that. It was truly remarkable, with remarkable merchandise. And it was just 25 years, probably too early. So anyway, a few very smart people had the same idea that you did. So just wanted to mention that and call that out. All right, well, let's get to our segment now with on grocery with Dr. Sylvain Charlebois and our friend Dave Marcotte.